This PowerPoint is titled Small but Mighty E. coli. We're going to kind of get into what is E. coli and some features. So what exactly is E. coli? We're going to go over what it is, where it's found, how a person can contract E. coli. We'll go over that taxonomy. We'll go over its structural anatomy, and we'll kind of talk about how we go about getting rid of it. So, E. coli is a coliform bacterium. It is actually found in the intestinal tract of humans and animals. It prefers that warm blood. Its presence in water can mean there is a fecal contamination. Now, not all coliforms in water mean that there is a fecal contamination, but some do. Um, you're actually allowed so many coliforms per so many amount of water, and when it reaches over that point, that's when it becomes a problem. E. coli is gram negative. It will stain pink or red, and I have a picture to the side here, and you can kind of see the E. coli and how it is stained pink. It is a facultative anaerobe, so that means it can thrive in an oxygen or non-oxygen environment. When oxygen is present, it will make ATP by that aerobic respiration. When oxygen is not present, it will switch to fermentation, and those are the different ways it kind of survives. Here we're going to kind of talk about where it is found. So, like we stated before, in the intestines of animals and humans, cattle are a really big problem for this. It will live in cattle, sheep, goats, those typical farm animals. And when these cattle defecate, then it is introduced into the environment. So you kind of gotta watch, especially people that handle these types of animals. Um, it is also found in food, certain types of food, if it's not cooked right. We'll go over that in a little bit. It is found in untreated water, like we stated before. Those coliforms are in water, and if E. coli is present, then that means it is a fecal contamination. And found in the environment, like I said, cattle, they do their business in the fields, found in the water, just multiple places in the environment, soil, water, different places. So, how does a person get infected? So, eating undercooked food. It is very important to thoroughly cook your food at the right and adequate temperatures because E. coli can be present in that meat that you're getting ready to eat. And if it's not cooked to the right temperature, then you will contract it, you will swallow it, and it will thrive in your intestines. Eating or drinking unpasteurized dairy products. So it's the same thing. We talked about the cattle. Um, you don't want to mess with the unpasteurized. Make sure it says pasteurized. So eating or drinking fresh juices. Like we said, E. coli can be found in the environment, so your juice may contain E. coli. Eating unwashed fruit or vegetables. So again, E. coli can be in that soil, and you dig those vegetables up. Not only could it be on those vegetables, it could be on your hand. from digging in that dirt. Swimming or showering in contaminated water. We kind of already went over this. And drinking contaminated water. So they treat water or drinking water in places it's treated and filtered. When you're going swimming, sometimes it tends to splash in your mouth. So with that, you don't know if that water's contaminated. And if you're out and about hiking or camping, you definitely need to make sure that the water is boiled or treated before you drink it. And they actually make this life straw thing now for these backpackers so they can kind of filter out their water. Coming in contact with infected feces or contaminated objects. So if a person is infected with E. coli and they go to the bathroom, they don't wash their hands, so they come out and they grab the phone or the remote control. Well, now that bacteria is on that object. So the next person that comes in contact with that object will possibly contract E. coli. So very important to wash your hands. What is the taxonomy? So we know the binomial nomenclature and how everything is labeled. So I kind of put them in order here. And it is from the kingdom Bacteria. Its phylum is the Proteobacteria. Its class is the Gamma Proteobacteria. Order Enterobacteriales. Family is Enterobacteriaceae. The genus is Escherichia. And finally, we have our species, Escherichia coli, or E. coli. So, pretty neat to go back and think about this because there's so many things that it is related to, and you'd never know because the different names. So here we're going to talk about the structures. So E. coli is rod-shaped. It is enveloped with 3 layers: the cytoplasmic membrane, the peptidocin layer, and the outer membrane. It is non-spore forming. Sometimes it's motile, sometimes it's non-motile. And the motility actually comes from those flagellar movements. It is unicellular, and it's typically anywhere from 1 to 2 micrometers. And micrometers are very tiny, and that's why we have to have a microscope to be able to see these bacteriums. So how do you get rid of it? There's actually no cure for E. coli. And E. coli sometimes lives in your gut and you don't even know it. You go, there's no symptoms. Treatment is aimed at relieving those symptoms and preventing complications. Rest is a big deal. It keeps you from getting fatigued. And they also will tell you to take in a lot of fluids because it kind of helps to flush that bacterium out. And it will also prevent dehydration because dehydration can lead to serious problems. There are multiple strains of E. coli, and I have them listed here. We have the EAEC, or the enteroaggregative, the HEC, which is the enterohemorrhagic, the enteroinvasive, EIEC, enteropathogenic, EPEC, enterotoxigenic, ETEC, and the diffuse adherent, DAEC. So E. coli has to grow between certain temperatures and pressures to be able to thrive. And it is a pretty big range. When it reaches 30 degrees Celsius, they noticed that it started to divide double time. It can grow actually between 20 and 40 degrees Celsius or 68 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressures range anywhere from 1 to 400 atm. It does actually multiply well in warm temperatures, and that is exactly why it typically favors the intestines because they are warm. But E. coli will burst at a temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit. E. coli is a very durable bacterium, but it is not immortal. However, we said there were no cures. The human body does not reach 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that kind of would be the reason. So E. coli is really easily prevented. Now, with that being said, you're not always going to be able to prevent it. Because like we talked like earlier, somebody may have come before you and used the remote without washing their hands and you got it, and bam, now you have E. coli. So, proper hand washing is the main key to prevention. Like we stated, if you go to the bathroom, even if you're not eating directly after, you still need to wash your hands. Especially, it kind of helps prevent the spread. Cook your food thoroughly. Do not eat raw meat. That's also a biggie. Always wash your raw fruits and vegetables. Like we stated before, E. coli can thrive in soil and different environments. Do not drink contaminated water. If you think for the slightest that it's not clean water, do not. And 9 out of 10, it won't be clean water, and you never know what may have happened upstream. If an animal has used the bathroom in that stream or even died somewhere up that stream, then all that's washing down to you. And only drink those pasteurized dairy products. It's totally not safe. Cows and stuff are big reservoirs for that E. coli host. So just easily prevented in some small ways that can make a really big difference. So not last, but here we're going to kind of go over the history of E. coli. So it was actually first discovered in 1185 by Dr. Theodore Estrich, and he was a pediatrician. And he had first started studying this in children's guts. He started studying bacteria that was in their guts. So E. coli was actually first called Bacterium coli commune. And the word coli was actually used because that type of bacteria was found in the colon. And the Bacterium coli commune was actually used all the way up until 1919 when two guys, Castellani and Chalmers, changed the genus to Escherichia, thus for making that E. coli. And I'm sure you know by now where they got the name. Obviously, it was Dr. Theodore's last name that kind of inspired that name. So, a pretty cool little background. E. coli's been around for quite a while, and I don't really think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Pretty neat to think about. Last, we're going to talk about some signs and symptoms. These are not to scare you because these symptoms may come along with a million other things, but E. coli infection may present with a fever. You will have diarrhea with E. coli. It could be watery or bloody, just depends on the strain. You can present with abdominal cramps, which we get with diarrhea. You may experience a loss of appetite, and you could become dehydrated. E. coli is typically diagnosed by either blood work or a stool sample.